Thank you, Excellency, distinguished panel, distinguished audience. It has been some amazing day that we have spent together, and again I want to reiterate my sincere appreciation for inviting me as Chief of UNFPA's Seoul Representation Office to come and present my views on resource mobilization for the South-South and Triangular Cooperation. I think in the previous statement that I made and that we have concluded is we are not near to our SDGs. And in addition, we are also widely off target in terms of the funding of the whole package. I think estimates show that we need to leverage 264 billion United States dollars to realize the ICPD by 2030. But only 42 millions have already been realized. And if we look at the wider SDG agenda, of course, the volume is much bigger. What we can come, however, to conclude that not only do we need to mobilize resources for South-South and triangular cooperation, being a critical accelerator, but it could also help leverage the results, impacts, resources required to realize our vision. So the South-South and triangular cooperation modality in itself could unleash the remaining funding that we need to do. To deepen and intensify our partnerships is one of the very important objectives. So in itself, of course, we require funding. And what I will be talking about in the remaining 7 minutes is the so-called famous $1 million question. How can we leverage resources for the Sustainable Development Goals? I think, just to recapitulate, we are coming from different regional realities and country contexts, but we are all experiencing an unprecedented moment in time, and as I alluded to in my previous remark, the world today looks very different from 2015 when the Sustainable Development Goals were presented. We are seeing fragmentation, we are seeing new conflicts, there is no longer disagreement that the climate stressors are really impacting us all as a collective in our collectivity. On the other hand, we have also seen that there are new opportunities nascent in this new picture that is emerging. New actors, new sources of funding, new supporters. And I think in the work that we need to do is to be very vigilant and have the foresight to be attentive to mapping also the new allies, the new supporters that may come from new sides and try to bring them on board on the ICPD agenda. The role of SSTC, or South-South Triangular Cooperation, under these conditions is, I think, COVID. It did show, for example, very well that we as a collective community can quickly change, exchange data, adapt our behaviors in the most deep ways, even normative ones. And we can exchange our learnings very quickly and adapt, innovate, find the resources, find solutions, overcome aging barriers, including operational ones. We know we can do it. We have the ability to navigate the changes, to overcome them. But how do we then need to reconfigure to draw the benefits of these opportunities? One of the ways is, of course, that the artificial intelligence and the opportunities it can unleash are coming with opportunities to leapfrog also some of the especially intelligence work we need to do to see where is it that we can learn, where is it that we can share our learnings. But I think that in this whole reconfiguration of information sharing, the South-South exchange is actually becoming more important. The value of the in-person meeting in this day and time is becoming an exclusive opportunity, which we should be harnessing fully in terms of understanding some of the very complex dynamics that we cannot interrogate with a simple question, dichotomistic yes and no, and the way that current systems are set up. But we can get a deeper sense making. We can make sense together of reality, and we can also move beyond the data points that are accessible right now on our phone by South-South and triangular cooperation. I think that this is an advantage that we need to harness. And in terms of resource mobilization, and I wanted to come to this before going into the 3 points I wanted to share, the opportunities in different spheres of funding. It is really to know what the return on investment is for South-South and triangular cooperation, to be very clear about the value add. And I have seen some studies, especially, for example, from a UNFPA Korea-funded program on safe motherhood in Laos. They could demonstrate that the value of the visit generated 4 times the impact compared to what they could have done without the experienced visit to another country. I think that type of data is very important in order to build the case for South-South and triangular cooperation. The other point is really, as I mentioned, to be able to get the more detailed description of the complex situations that now we are actually maneuvering. So to move on, I think also that SSTC, in as much as we are undertaking it, can also bring about efficiency gains. If we take the chance to be very honest and to be very comprehensive in our sharing, also related to the operational bottlenecks that we may face in undertaking the visits, so that we can just be able to always build a more clear case. I also think that the type of meeting that we are having today and over the past days and the type of venues are excellent opportunities to think through with clarity what is our proposition. What is the priority in my particular country? And who is it and what are the different partners who could be sitting on the solutions in this marketplace? And I want to commend my colleague Dennis and the Galaxy system of the United Nations. It's a very helpful tool to also quickly be able to see that. And then moving over to resource mobilization avenues, I wanted to touch on 3 particular points. And the one point is from the side of UNFPA and the work that we do with national governments, which is enshrined in our country program documents. You must, of course, we are signing them with the governments in every country. I have been our representative in Bangladesh and in Malaysia, and also country director for Thailand. And in every country program document we have brought to the board, we have included an element as an outcome to promote and engage in South-South and triangular cooperation. However, when you do that and you agree with the government to allocate resources in this direction, at the beginning of the program, you may not know what good lesson you will be able to share. Or you may not know what is the problem you may need to learn from someone else of. So I think, and this is a personal leadership reflection, it requires the leader to be activated and to take this to heart and to think about always looking out for these opportunities to share good examples, but also to listen in and have the humility to learn from others, and to cultivate in the teams the growth-oriented mindset that wants to confess, I may not be perfect. I need to learn something from someone. And that is a humble journey to make. And you as a leader need to encourage that atmosphere in the team. And in that sense, I think the South-South and triangular cooperation can be very well born under such circumstances, and very fruitfully so. And Bangladesh has done a lot of exciting exchanges to exchange its learnings, which has been wonderful to have reported from colleagues in the government. But also in Thailand, we have had such strong support from the Thailand International Cooperation Agency, which actually co-funded with the UNFPA regular program the South-South and triangular cooperation aspects of the country program. So we were able to engage in a lot of different policy sharing among particularly Asian nations. So that is one of the sides. And in addition, within UNFPA and with our esteemed governments and member states, there are certain funds. For example, I think India has a Growth and Development South-South Fund. I think the same goes for China, if I may be corrected. And we have a lot of new emerging funding modalities coming out, emerging funds, innovative financing, strategic investment financing. In my recent tenure in Malaysia, we opened up for Islamic financing of our mandate, which may not be necessarily immediately easy because we need to shape our narrative to be conducive to the requirements of this line of financing. So I think, again, it requires the agile leader to look out and see what the opportunities are and to build the case. And I think, once again, and I circle back to that point, that the South-South and triangular cooperation modality is a very strong proposition because it includes many different partners. And it covers many different SDGs. So by one singular intervention, you will be able to meet the many complicated targets that are required to reach our SDGs. And with that, I'm hopeful that we can actually reach the SDGs in the 7 years that we have, or 6. And moving over to then the private sector, can we engage the private sector? We had good examples, again, from Thailand that was funding our big program on reaching the underserved during COVID, initially, but later in the border areas to Myanmar, on safe motherhood. We had a big private sector player coming in. And we have to think of them as also being, of course, multinational actors operating across borders. So I think being able to broker opportunities for funding with them, of course, mindful of their interests in this particular process and with the due diligences that it requires. It's a partnership that can be a little bit difficult to put in place, but once we have it, it's very, very fertile and has a lot of potential for cross-sharing and learning. And in that context, I think there is familiarity of the ESG agenda that all the private sector players are now needing to comply their business with environmental, social, and governance safeguards. And this is very closely monitored. And I think, for example, any relation with the European Union now has to be scrutinized and screened for an ESG perspective. Now, the environmental movement has been very good to articulate its propositions, and the governance as well. But the social agenda, we have a lot of homework to do. And so in the acronym, I don't want to add another acronym to you, but I have to. ESG, the E is a big one, the G is big, and the S is small. I think it's our job now to enhance that S and to show to private sector players what they can do, and investments, for example, on South-South collaboration that could square with their interests could be a very, very interesting one. So I think just to briefly also then conclude with the example of the Republic of Korea where I am now, which I have been suggesting has a very optimistic trajectory of official development assistance. We are, as we speak, signing an agreement for 6 countries. It's in Mali, Central African Republic, Somalia, South Sudan, Lebanon and Palestine to provide life-saving support under humanitarian conditions of 32.7 million United States dollars. We have a global coordinator position associated with this. And the learning agenda around how can we, in a humanitarian context, also perhaps see, can we capture learning? Because this is where we need to be very quick, because the humanitarian sector is moving very fast. On the other hand, and now I'm actually almost concluding, I think we can all see that in this day and time, and by this week or month, exceptional events that we said only happens in a lifetime, they are actually happening routinely. So the learnings from the humanitarian sector to us is going to be also of critical importance, perhaps to see if we can explore learnings, mindful, of course, of the operational circumstances and the challenges there. So very lastly, clearly every country and every one of us has something to share and something to learn. It takes leadership to engage in South-South. I think it also takes courage. So for me, really leaders do South-South collaboration. And collaboration today is more important than ever. By collaborating, we also weave peace, and we can more quickly reach our SDGs. And if we are to compete, and some are saying that competition are it's an inert drive in humanity. Let us compete on who can best serve the underserved. Let that be our competition. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.